In this video, I'll show you how to animate text using position keyframes in After Effects for your Kinetic typography assignment. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to make this what I call drop-in animation. So it will look like this. The text starts off the screen and it's going to drop in and kind of, not so much bounce, but kind of squish or crush itself a little bit when it hits the ground and kind of pop back into place. So kind of here's what we have. So I have that drop-in animation. And so if we take a look at this, the text starts off the screen and it just drops in. And when it hits the ground, it kind of scales itself down and then pops back into place. So this is a pretty easy animation that we can make with just a couple of layers and keyframes. So here's how to do it. I'm going to make mine in a new composition. I'm going to call it sample position like this. Again, always check your presets, your duration, and your frame rate. I'm going to change the background color though, like that. Okay, the first thing you need to do is you need to make your text. And so I'm going to click on the text tool here. Again, character panel. Here's your font, here's your color, here's your size, and you can change all of that. I'm going to actually type the word drop in again, like this. Now, what's important though is that each word that drops in is on its own layer. So don't type drop in all at once. Just type the word drop or whatever you're using. And then I'm going to move it to where I want it to be when it's done animating. So I'm going to move it down here. Now I want to write the word in right here, and I want it to be exactly the same as drop, the same font, the same anchor point, everything like that. So I'm going to come down to this layer here, and I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to hit duplicate, or I can press Control D on my keyboard. Now you can see I have two layers, drop and drop 2. Drop 2 is my copy of it. So I'm going to click on the move tool, and I'm going to hold down shift and move it over to where I want. I'm going to double click on it and type the word in here. So now I have drop in. These are already lined up because I was careful when I duplicated it, but let's say that they're not lined up. You could come in here and you could like go into the position and find its coordinates, but I think it's easier to like highlight both and go to a line like this. And if it's on selection, I can say, hey, align them on the bottom. And then I can move it over here by pressing shift to make it where I want to go. So now I have my layers where I want to go. I'm going to go into the first word, drop, and I'm going to animate that first. So I'm going to twirl down drop and transform. And I'm going to use position keyframes for this. So I'm going to click the stopwatch next to position. And I set a position here where it ended up animating. I'm also going to move forward in the timeline for how long I want it to fall in. So we're going to go, I don't know, 10 frames again and set another keyframe there. The 10 frames is actually where I want it to be in its final position like this. So I'm going to go back to the beginning and I'm going to move this off the screen. I'm just going to drag it. I'm going to hold shift. I'm going to move it off the screen. And After Effects does the magic in between. So now I have this drop animation like this. Now, if I press spacebar and press and watch it, that drop in is okay. Maybe I want it to go a little faster. So maybe I'll move these keyframes a little bit closer together. But it doesn't look that natural. It just kind of stops in place. So I think that when it hits the ground, I should click on the scale keyframe. And I'm going to set a keyframe right here. And what I want it to do is I want it to be at 100% scale right here. But I'm going to move forward a couple frames by pressing page down. And right here, I want it to like crush itself or, get a little shorter. And so I'm going to unconstrain the proportion. So I'm going to click this little chain and get that out of there so that I can just kind of crush this text in the Y direction. And I want to crush it 85%. And so that's a little bit, that makes it go down a little bit. It's really important that your anchor point for this is at the bottom. So if your anchor point's not at the bottom, you might need to use pan behind to move it there so that it crushes on the floor. See what happens when I moved it up top? Now it's not on the floor. So I'm going to move it down there. And even 85 might not be enough. So I'm going to go down to like 75%. Then I'm going to go a couple more keyframes, page down, and I'm going to set this back to 100%. If I want to get real fancy, maybe I want to set this to 110% and then go a couple more keyframes again and set it to 100%. This is all up to you. So now I can go like this and I can zoom out so I can see the whole thing. And I press spacebar. Now I have my text drop in like that. I would do the same thing for in, only I might start its drop just a little bit later. One other thing that you might want to do is you might want to set these keyframes to easy ease, which again will make your animation look a little bit more natural by letting After Effects change the speed of the way it animates in between them. So I'm just going to click on all of these by holding down Shift. Go keyframe assistant, I'm going to choose easy ease, just like that. And so now if I press spacebar, my drop in looks really nice. So now I would do the same thing for in. I would go into transform and I would start doing my position and scale keyframes for that. One trick that you might want to look into is if you drag your timeline up a little bit. I know that makes this window a little bit smaller, but if I look into drop in and I just collapse transform, I get these dots, and that shows me on the timeline that something in transform is happening there, but that can help me kind of time out where I want other things to happen. Maybe I want the in to start dropping in right here when drops hits the ground. So now I kind of have a visual of where that happens. So I'm going to set a keyframe for position for in. I'm going to set another keyframe for in to maybe right here. I always set these two keyframes the same. And I'm going to go back to the first one and I'm going to move that off the screen. And so I'm going to have this drop in from up here like this. So now I have the drop in part. After it drops in, I'm going to move down a keyframe or two like this. I'm going to set a scale keyframe here. I'm also going to set one right here. I'm going to set this keyframe to 75%, unconstrained in the Y direction. This, I'm going to move down a couple more. Maybe I'm going to have it grow again to 110%. Move down a couple more, page down, page down. I'm going to set this to 100%. So now I have this animation. And again, if I want to, I can highlight all of these and change this to easy ease. And if I wanted to change when this animation happens, I could take this whole set of keyframes, I can move them down or move them closer. So it goes like that. And just remember that you can combine multiple animation effects. So if you wanted it to, drop in from the side or curve in, or you can make it scale in the X direction, all of that just gets changed in your keyframes. But here's how you can animate things in After Effects using position and scale.